I'm going to do something a little different this week with my message. In terms of, I just want to literally read through the Psukim at the start of the Parasha, because I think what's fascinating is how timeless the Torah is. The fact that when we look at these Psukim, when we read them, we're going to be immediately transported into modern day world politics and understand the lessons of Korach can be applied to what's happening today, or to understand what's happening today. So Korach, of course, is a very depressing Sedra. And it starts by saying, Vayikach Korach ben Yitzhar ben Kahat b'nei Levi. This Levite, this very important cousin of Moshe, somebody of tremendous gravitas, he comes along. Who with? Torah tells us, Datan v'Aviram b'nei Eliav, Von ben Pelet b'nei Reuven. He has his team to come up against Moshe. He has Datan and Aviram, who we've met many times previously, real enemies of Moshe. Of course, the first time we met them was when he struck an Egyptian. They were kind of complained, who are you? You know, we don't need you. We're fine. Thank you very much. And on Ben Pelet, who again we'll get to later on. And then it says, Vayakumu livnei Moshe, v'anashim b'nei Yisrael chamishim matayim nisei eda kremed anshe Shem. They came with 250 men of renown. These were not, nobodies. These were really seriously important chashuv mention, of the Jewish people. And what do they say? Vikalu al Moshe v'Aaron. They came against Moshe and Aaron. V'amru alehem, and they said to them, Rav lachem kol ha'edah, kulam kadoshim, v'tocham Adonai, madua tidnasu al kahal Adonai. What did they say? This entire assembly, all of us, we are kadosh. Why do you make yourself better against Hashem? What makes you more important than us? What makes you kind of senior and lording over us? So understand, what are they saying? This is direct confrontation against the leadership of Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron HaKohen. And the question is why? Why now? This is not the first time that there's been a Jewish people together. They've had plenty and plenty of an entire year of wandering around and so on and so forth. Because what's happened just now? Last Parasha in Shalach Lecha, disaster. Moshe's approval ratings would have plummeted. Suddenly, the infallible leader of the Jewish people, the man who'd taken us out of Egypt, who'd given us the Torah, had spoken to us, Hashem gave him time, he spoke to us through Hashem, unbelievable miracles. But suddenly, that same person, it hasn't worked. The spies didn't work. Moshe, was your idea. You sent the spies in, and it went terrible. 40 years of wilderness. 40 wandering. People are going to die before they, or when they're 60 or just after. It's a tragedy. And therefore, Korach realizes this is the time to strike. It could be he has had these ideas for years, but he was waiting till his opponent was at his lowest, then he could strike. And again, when you think about today, when you think of political situations, people are always looking to get the upper hand and waiting till there's a chink of weakness. And that's why Korach struck. What does Moshe do? Straight away, he says, Vayishma Moshe, he heard, Vayipol al panav, and he fell on his face. What does that mean? He was deeply, deeply hurt. This is family. Okay, Datan Aviram and On Ben Pelet b'nei Reuven, I get it. That doesn't bother me as much as you, Reuven. As you, Korach. I mean, you're family. You're my cousin. You understand who we are as Levim. You understand the gift we've been given by Hashem. What are you doing? Sometimes it hurts so much when it's family. And again, we've spoken about the last few weeks how the pain of what's happening in Israel, the biggest pain I have is not that there are anti-Semites that hate us, not that the radical left hates us. We expect that. When our own people seem to hate us, when our own people seem to side with the enemy, that is what is most painful. But you pull up and he fell in his face. Sometimes you just want to cry. You just want to say, I don't understand. How can you, your family, how can you not understand? But then comes Moshe's statement. After his falling his face and his upset and his being distraught, he says, he spoke to Korach and his company. He says, in the morning, Hashem will make known the one who is his own and his holy one. He he will draw him closer to himself. And wherever he chooses, he will draw closer to himself. Moshe says, you know what? There's going to have to be a decision here. We're going to have to decide who it is, you or me. Even though Moshe was devastated about this attack, devastated that it was Korach, it was family, doesn't matter. You have to go to battle. You have to fight against this. This is so dangerous. This is so damaging to everything he stands dear. Everything we as a Jewish people hold dear. The whole idea of Yiddishkeit is the transmission of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Moshe Rabbeinu and Jewish people, the Messiah going through. Somebody is coming along to challenge that whole idea of Hashem, Moshe, and the Messiah. Moshe is not going to take this stand sitting down. He's going to fight because some things are worth fighting for. When we are attacked by our family, however painful it may be to have to say they are wrong, we have to say things. We have to stand up and say this cannot go on. And what does he say? Basically, to take the 5 pounds, to put the incense and so forth. And then Moshe says the thing to Korach. Not to Korach v'adato. This time it's just Moshe to Korach. Shimuna b'nei Levi. He says to Korach, b'nei Levi, sons of Levi, my family. What does he say? Hamat mikem ki yivdil Elohei Yisrael etchem be'adat Yisrael, lakriv etchem elav, lavod al avodat ha-mishkan, Adonai ve'lamod lifnei ha'yada l'sharatam. Is it not enough for you that Hashem has segregated you from the assembly to draw you near to himself, to perform the acts in the Mishkan, to stand before the whole community, to serve them? This is what we've been given. What are you doing? What are you throwing away? So much. We've got so much with the Levim. We've got such a blessing from Hashem. What are you doing? And this week we had a situation, and it was fascinating. You may have seen it in both in cricket and football. This whole discussion, debate in football about taking the knee, and in cricket about this cricketer who some tweets he said in 9 years ago. And it's a mixture of opinions. Some are saying, of course, it should be banned, and of course, we've got to take the knee. And other people are saying it's ridiculous. Well, it's 9 years ago, and people are saying the knee, it's Black Lives Matter. They were anti-Semitic, anti-Zionist, anti-Western communist movement. There's arguments on both sides. What was fascinating for me was I read The Guardian this week about these things, especially about the Ollie Robinson tweets. And I expected in some of the other newspapers to have very much a sort of decision against the woke culture, as people call it, sort of in defense of, not taking the knee, in defense of, not banning this player because it's ridiculous. How far can we go? And we've got to see the other side, understand what the bigger picture is in terms of Black Lives Matter and in terms of the wider issues. But what's fascinating for me when it came to the Guardian articles or the talkbacks, many of the people talking back in the Guardian article were agreeing and saying we shouldn't, in this case, ban this cricketer. Why? Because in essence, we're losing the battle. We're losing the war. We may win the battle in this case that somebody who has done a tweet that was offensive is punished. But what's the war? The war is the bigger battle of fighting real racism, real anti-Semitism, real xenophobia. This is not this. And if you focus on this and put all your eggs in this basket, said the Guardian readers, we're going to lose the war. And it's a very interesting point. And it's what Moshe is saying to Korach. What are you doing? You want to gain something here, but you're going to throw all this away. There's so much you've got already, so much you have. What are you doing? Or to fast and move a lot to faster. You grab too much, you won't grab anything. And then Moshe turns his attention to Datan and Aviram. He's spoken to Korach. Now he turns to Datan and Aviram and says, guys, you come discuss with me, because it's different. Korach is a family and it's different. What's the issue with you? What's the issue with you, Datan and Aviram? And then it says the following. He says, they say, we're not talking to you. We're not coming to discuss anything with you. Who are Datan and Aviram? They are the people who hate Moshe Rabbeinu. Even when Moshe Rabbeinu saved their life with the Egyptian, they weren't grateful. As far as I can say, what are you doing? Get away. There's nothing Moshe Rabbeinu can do that will ever get praise from Datan and Aviram. Who are Datan and Aviram today? They are people who hate the Jewish people. Doesn't matter what we do. I'm not talking to you. I'm not going to discuss anything with you because I hate you. Forget the fact that it doesn't matter. And what's even more interesting is that Datan and Aviram have gone into bed with Korach. Datan and Aviram have a massive problem with what? With the elite, with Moshe Rabbeinu lording all over everyone else. They don't like that. But they're getting into bed with a Levite, with Moshe's cousin, with the same family. In essence, they're going to just have the same issues. But they're blind to it. Because what is governing them is the hatred of Moshe Rabbeinu. They loathe him with a passion. They're willing to get into bed with somebody who they know, or they should know, is never going to deliver for them. It's the same today. We have this ridiculous alliance between the Islamists and the radical left. Knowing full that so much of what the radical left stands for in terms of gender equality and sexuality is an anathema to Islamists. But yet they get into bed together. Why? Because they hate the Jewish people. They hate Israel. Natural bedfellows may hate each other, but will unite against a common enemy. In this case, Moshe Rabbeinu. In our case today, Israel and the Jewish people. But then listen to what Datan Aviram say to Moshe Rabbeinu. It's remarkable. What do they say? They won't come talk to him, but they make a statement in the press. And what's their statement in the press? Hamad ki elitanu me'eretz zavat chalav u'dvash lamitenu b'midbar ki tistareh aleinu gam tistareh. It's not enough, says Datan Aviram, that you have brought us up from a land flowing with milk and honey to cause us to die in the wilderness. Just listen to what they said. It is not enough you brought us up from the land flowing with milk and honey. That's a complete and utter lie. He brought them up from the land of Egypt, where they were enslaved for 210 years by horrific taskmasters. But they don't only just say, in the last week's Parashat, 2 weeks ago, they talked about they had leeks and cucumbers, they were just being delusional. This is a complete and utter lie, not just any lie. Look at the language. You brought us up from Eretz Zavat Chalav Udvash, the very land that Moshe has said we're going to be going to. They're using that phrase to condemn Moshe. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely crazy, but that's what's happening today. The lies being said by Israel haters are remarkable. They're using the beauty of Israel against us. The fact that Israel pinpointed to destroy terrorists, pinpoint actually remarkable accuracy. Never in any warfare have we seen the limited deaths of Israeli airstrikes in terms of civilian casualties. Normally it's in the thousands when this has to happen. This has happened with battles with ISIS and battles in other places when the allies have had to shoot and fire missiles. Thousands of deaths of civilians. War happens. Israel, the death toll was minuscule. But as far as any of us are concerned, it is the butchery of Palestinian children. It's such a lie. It's not even believable. Of course we grieve any death that happened. But don't give me a blatant lie. You took us out from the land flowing milk and honey. You're butchering Palestine. It's mad. But that's the hatred. They are so passionately hate the Jewish people, passionately hate Moshe Rabbeinu. They will outright lie, just say something completely ridiculous that is even trying to abuse what that person is standing for. To tell Moshe Rabbeinu, who is taking us to land flowing milk and honey, to tell him, you took us out of that, is absurd. But what does he say? To cause us to die in the wilderness, yet you seek to dominate us, even to dominate further. I'm doing nothing as Moshe Rabbeinu. You've brought this suit against me. You've come with Korach to tell me I should step aside. I'm doing nothing. But it's a realization that that is what our enemies want. You can't negotiate with these people. You can't argue. You can't debate with these people. They are irrational. The hatred at the moment towards certain parts of the media, certain parts of the intelligentsia, of the academics, and of course on the political left, it's just illogical, irrational, and hateful. But we see it in Datan Aviram. And we see it, unfortunately, in Korach from our own family. And basically, what does Moshe say after this outburst? This distressed Moshe greatly. And he said to Hashem, do not turn to the gift offering. I have not taken a single donkey of theirs, nor have I wronged even one of them. It's the same line that the Israeli government quite rightly says, like, we have done everything in our power. We've done nothing but try to help. We gave them Gaza in 2005. We left them greenhouses and schools and everything to build an infrastructure to live in a beautiful society. They destroyed it all and built weapons and weapons and rockets to murder our civilians. I'm sorry. It's so upsetting to Israel to see what's happened to Gaza. And even when they try and do it in a way to limit the terrorism and limit the civilian casualties, they're still condemned by the world, condemned by Datan Aviram, condemned by their family, Korach. Of course, we know the end of the story. The end of the story is tragic. That Hashem basically says, no more. No more to Korach v'Adato. And they are wiped out. And Moshe is vindicated in his vision, our vision, God's vision for the Jewish people. But we have to realize, Torah is timeless. The lessons of Moshe against Korach, the lessons of Datan v'Aviram against Moshe, the alliance between Datan v'Aviram and Korach. These things aren't just ancient stories in the Torah. They are relevant about human personalities, about the hatred will be for leadership, sometimes the Jewish people, truth in the Jewish people, and how ego and lust and power get in the way of truth and Torah. Korach is a very tragic story. But we have to realize that story is still being told and acted today. Shabbat Shalom.